Okay.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shonda Harris, and I am with the U.S. Small Business Administration here in Columbus. And we'd like to welcome you to today's webinar. Today is Thursday, November 12th, and today's session will be a small business subcontracting panel discussion. And as you can see, we do have 5 panelists. They're listed on the screen there that will be joining us today. We're looking forward to having a very dynamic, very interactive and informative session that you can learn from some small businesses that have been doing subcontracting and prime contracting with various different government entities. Now, today's webinar is a part of a series of webinars that is for our Ohio Business Matchmaker. And for some of you that may be joining us for the first time, just want to give you a little bit of information about the Ohio Business Matchmaker. It is our largest signature contracting event that we've been doing here in Central Ohio for about 15 years. And it gives small businesses an opportunity if you're looking to expand your footprint and grow and do your business outside of the commercial sector, the private sector, and you want to start engaging government agencies, whether it's at the federal level, the state, the city, the county, or municipalities, then the Matchmaker is the event for you. Again, we've been doing this for 15 years, and typically it is a face-to-face event that we usually do in the spring in April at the Nutter Center at Wright-Patterson, at the Nutter Center at Wright State University in Dayton. But of course, due to the pandemic and the effects of COVID, we were unable to do it this year. But I'm so glad that we were able to still do the event and do it virtually. So we will be doing that on Tuesday, November 17th and Wednesday, November 18th. So if you notice in the middle of the screen, if you have not registered, you can visit ohiobusinessmatchmaker.com to register, and registration is just $35. And so if you do want a little bit more information about what the Matchmaker will be, what the layout, how it's going to be, and how you will get engaged with the government agencies, if you go to the website and click on the previous recorded webinars at the top of the screen, there's a panel. You can see there is one of the very first webinars that we did in October was, what is the Ohio Business Matchmaker? And kind of how you can make the most of it. So I would encourage you to check out that webinar. Again, we've been doing this for 15 years, and there's no way that we could do this with this being our largest contracting event. There's no way that we could do this on our own. So this event, the entire webinar series, the virtual Matchmaker, is a collaborative effort between a wonderful group of partners, between Ohio Development Services Agency, the Ohio Small Business Development Center, the PTACs, the Procurement Technical Assistance Centers, the MBACs, Minority Business Assistance Centers, just a team of small business resources that kind of come together to help put this on every year. With that said, we do have one of our resource partners that is on the webinar, and we'd like to actually hear from them so that you can find out what the Procurement Technical Assistance Centers do. If this is your first time getting engaged with government contracting and learning about it, sometimes it can be a little daunting and overwhelming, but the Procurement Technical Assistance Centers is a resource that can assist you in your efforts or on your journey to getting started. So with that said, I'd like to introduce Sharon Hopkins, who is the manager for the Ohio PTAC, Procurement Technical Assistance Center. Sharon, if you can let our audience know a little bit more about PTAC and what they can expect as far as the services that you provide.
Sure. Thank you, Shonda. I'm the program manager for the Ohio University PTAC. Our statewide manager is Sharon Smith out of the Columbus office. And I manage the Ohio University team. So we have offices across the state. We serve 62 Ohio counties. And we help businesses sell to government agencies. So that's everything from helping you figure out how to get started, where to start, what your, what you need to do to get ready, what the requirements are. We help you, point you to registrations. We will walk you through registrations. Some of them, especially in the federal government, can be overwhelming. We also talk to you about set-asides if you're a small business, and see if there's any set-asides that might apply to you. And we make sure you're aware of what those are and what the requirements are, the criteria of those set-asides. And then we also will walk you through that process should you need our assistance in the application process, or some guidance on gathering your documentation. Once we kind of bring you in and start talking about the general overview of procurement, and then we also look at what the government's buying and what you're selling. We have a bid match system that'll help you look at bids every day that the government, especially the federal government, puts out there. We also will encourage you to register at maybe some local sites as well as state websites for opportunities within the realm of your company as well. And then we also will talk to you about developing marketing pieces. The typical thing for government is a capability statement. So we will get started pretty early with you on getting that developed. And that just kind of is a resume of your company. And the agencies really like to see that because it kind of talks to them, and we help you make it easy reading for them, for the agencies. So once you find an opportunity and you would like to respond to that, we will sit down with you, look at the solicitation package, walk you through all of your questions there, answer those questions, point out things that we think are important that you need to be familiar with and know up front. And then we will give you pointers on how to develop your proposal. We do not write it for you, but we will guide you. And then in the end, we will also look it over if you want us to, and give you final pointers if need be. And then, we continue right along with you, hoping you win the contract. Our team is as excited as you are when you win your first contract. But once you win your contract, if you, it's time to invoice, and suddenly you have to use some system that you were unaware of, we will help you walk through that system. It's usually the WAF wide area workflow. And that's it's not an intuitive system, so we can help you also get paid in that way, walk you through that as well. And, if you are not in business, but you have an idea about some innovative product, we also can help you look at the possibility of a SBIR grant or a STTR grant from government agencies as well. So that's kind of a high-level overview of the kinds of things we do, but really just anything around selling to the government, we can help you and assist you in. We do have a website. Our statewide website is at www.find.govcontracts.ohio.gov, and we can put that in the chat as well. And that will get you to the statewide website, and from there you can look at the office closest to, oh, I see somebody's already gotten it. Thank you, Sharon. So you can look at the map. It'll show you, I told you I'm with Ohio University. We have another center up in Northwest Ohio, Rhodes State Community College. We have one over on the east side of Ohio at Youngstown State University, YSU. And then I have to think that through in my head. And then we have one in Southern Ohio at the Southern Ohio PTAC. So you'll look at that there. We all have service areas, so it's pretty clear what office you should contact. But you can find all of that information at the at that website that Sharon Smith put on there. And I just saw one that said Rhodes State College. Did I say that wrong? Northwest Ohio is Rhodes State Community College. So I don't know if I said that wrong or not, but anyway, if Kensel, I'm sorry if I messed that up. Oh, I said right state. I'm sorry, it is Rhodes State Community College. This chat box is wonderful today. Thank you, Jane. So Shonda, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. I know it's a lot to keep up with. The PTAC, especially the Ohio University PTAC, has really grown over the past year since 2012. So just keeping up with all of the different offices that they have. And I want to just give a special shout out. Again, I said that we have a host of partners that and resources that were able to put this event on. But I do want to say thank you to the PTAC team, especially Sharon Hopkins, because she has been facilitating all of the Zoom webinars with the exception of, I think, 2, and then doing the registrations and then all of the dry run practice sessions. So I do want to give a special shout out to Sharon and taking in all of the registrations for all of the webinars that we've been doing since October. So thank you so much, Sharon. And even kind of we were working on our day off yesterday for about an hour, hour and a half. So thank you so much for that. I think we have some of the preliminary things out of the way. Some more people have joined. Again, welcome to today's webinar, Small Business Subcontracting Panel Discussion. And as you can see, we have 5 wonderful panelists. And I think out of all of the webinars that we do, I really get, I think, the most excited about the panel discussions that we have with our small businesses. Again, as I said, my name is Shonda Harris. I work as a business opportunity specialist with the SBA, and I specifically manage firms that have 8A certification. Prior to me joining the SBA, I was with PTAC. And I was actually a PTAC counselor. Actually, Sharon Hopkins was my boss. And so I did have a chance as a PTAC counselor, I believe, to work with 3 of our panelists today. And the other 2 I've had a chance to work with now that I've been with the 8A program with the SBA. So Jackie Gamblin, our first guest panelist with JYG Innovations, is an 8A. I'm not going to introduce them, but just briefly kind of setting it up. She's an 8A firm that I directly have a chance to manage. Kevin Conley is another 8A firm. I don't work with him directly, indirectly, and he's been another panelist on some other panel discussions that I've moderated. And he works directly with the other BOS, Jill Nagy Reynolds. Halima Shafiq, with Green Office Solutions, Judy Politi with Judith Politi Interior Design, and Rishi Banat with Bear Environmental were all kind of clients that I worked directly with PTAC over the years. So it's very rewarding to be able to bring the panel discussion alive and knowing kind of some of their background. So with that said, you see their websites and their company names. We'll bring this up at the end. So if you do have questions for them specifically after this is over, you can follow up with them. Without further ado, I'm going to take this down, and then we will allow each of the panelists, as we get started, to kind of share their story, say a little bit about themselves, kind of how they got started, their journey, talk a little bit about their company, what they do, and maybe how they kind of got started in government contracting. And then we'll kind of go from there. As far as logistics wise, I will start off once the panelists kind of introduce themselves and kind of give a little backdrop. I will start off asking questions, and then at some point we will allow the guests, we will allow the participants, if you have questions, you can type those in and we'll try to interact and get your questions maybe kind of toward the end in the second part of our panel discussion. With that said, we will go ahead and we will start with Jackie Gamblin. So Jackie, if you wanna unmute yourself and share with everyone that's on the webinar today.
All right, thank you so much, Shonda. Good afternoon, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to be on the panel and talk about subcontracting. Shonda had asked us to put together a slide that would give a little bit of an overview as we introduced ourselves. So you should see that displaying now. I'm the CEO and founder of JYG Innovations. We're located here in Dayton, Ohio. And as Shonda mentioned, we are finishing up our tenure in the 8A Business Development Program. And as regards to our core services, we have 4 key areas that we have really grown into during these past 12 years. IT managed services, cybersecurity, research and analysis, and medical and clinical staffing. I would like to note that 2 of those areas, research and analysis and clinical staffing, were areas that we were able to gain capabilities and grow as a result of subcontracting. And we'll probably talk about that a little further on in the discussion. The other area I wanted to highlight is that we have a variety of partners in the defense, state and local, and commercial sector. And you can see some of those listed down in customers and partners. So everyone ranging from the Air Force to the EPA to the city of Dayton. In addition to our 8A certification, we have made some significant investments in industry certifications. We recently obtained not only our CMMI development level 3, but also services, because we thought that was important to our customers as we continue to grow in our software development area. We also have ISO 9000 and ISO 27001. And for those of you who know, those definitely are not cheap, but they really made a difference to make sure that we are implementing not only continuous improvement, but repeatable processes. The other part that we'd like to share is our contract vehicles. As you continue to grow your businesses and build capabilities, it's so important that you're able to go out and capture competitive IDIQ contract vehicles as a prime vendor. And again, you know, where we were able to do that because over the years we were able to gain experience and capability as a subcontractor. And then the last area I really wanted to share in the upper right-hand corner is our values. And I will say, just from our experience, probably the most important consideration as you look at subcontracting and teaming and partnering and pursuing opportunities is making sure that you partner and team with companies that share your values. This isn't a judgment, but you just have to make sure that people view business, approach opportunities, approach customers, treat employees the way that you do, so that you can have a cohesive and synergy with your teammates and with your customers, and make sure you're able to produce and deliver what you're on contract to do. So with that, I think I will turn it over to our next panel member. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jackie. Next, we will hear from Kevin Conley, Protective Coatings.
Hey, Shauna, I'm going to share my screen.
Okay. And Kevin is being joined by, Kevin Conley is being joined by his daughter, Kaylee. So she's also going to be interacting with us today.
Yeah. All right. Oops. Hi, I'm Kaylee Lebo, and my dad is here too, Kevin Conley, and we were with Protective Coatings, Inc., PCI, and we do a lot of construction projects for Wright-Patterson, We've done stuff for DSCC. We can design and build. We do interior fit outs, wastewater treatment plants and water treatment plants. So as a subcontractor, one of the most important things was being present, being in those areas where you can possibly next get the prime contract. So we've done a lot of work at Wright Pat under the Sabre contract for many, many years under different prime contractors. And with that, Keevan had many relationships with the CE, with the owners and the users in those buildings. So this year, well, last year there was opportunity for the Sabre project, they needed to have a bridge. And because of that, you know, they knew PCI had been out there, their presence, knew what we were doing, and we were able to get an award for the bridge project, which brought us in 12 different projects under the Sabre and gave us a big opportunity to grow and have some past performance that we needed to have. That's a big thing when you start out small and subcontracting is you need to have the past performance to be able to keep growing. And the only way to do that is to be present, keep asking, being there so that when they have an opportunity to allow you the bigger projects, you know, they know that you can get it done. Let's see. Another thing that we've learned is having our NAICS codes correct. That was the big thing for us when we first started is we had it just very small under just paints and coatings, and that limited us to the work that we could do. And once we were able to switch that to a broader project as our primary one, it really opened the doors for us to be able to get more projects. So that was definitely a big thing, was figuring out our NAICS codes, having the right ones, and keep adding to your list so that you're able to be awarded more projects. I guess another thing is like, don't give up. That's a really big thing is we were turned down on some opportunities, even as like the 8A, when we first wanted to be in the program, we were denied, and we didn't let that stop us. You know, we hired some people to help us figure it out. We kept applying, we kept asking questions, and then we were able to get into the 8A program. So it's a big thing. Just because you're told no one time doesn't mean that's going to be the final answer. Don't give up. Is there any questions or?
I think that's good. We're just kind of doing preliminary, just kind of a preliminary introduction. And I think that was some great points and highlights about PCI. So definitely thank you, Kaylee, and we will be hearing more from you. Next, we have Halima Shafiq with Green Office Furniture Solutions. Halima.
Hello, everyone. Give me just a moment to pull up my screen here. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Thank you. So my name is Halima Shafiq. I'm the owner of the original business was Green Office Furniture Solutions, and we rebranded in 2010 to GOFS Commercial Interiors, but most people still know us as Green Office Furniture Solutions. Part of that was because we started out as a design-based firm for FF&E projects, that's furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and went on to provide supplies, and now have a new technology division. So we started out primarily as a prime contractor working on contracts on the federal level, which is not something that most people do. We didn't really find that out until later. But one of the things that we did originally, we had a large group of contracts for the U.S. Army, about 7 contracts that totaled about $2 million in furniture that we provided for Fort Hood, Texas. Since then, we've done prime contracting with the SCC, Department of Veteran Affairs, as well as state entities. And we have been working with some major general contractors as a subcontractor, and I've listed a few there, and I definitely will talk about that more when we have our Q&A. But some of our current and past subcontracts include some of the projects you see listed there. And we continue to do work locally as well as in other states. I look forward to telling you more about some of the certifications we have and then just some of the journey to getting those contracts and working as a subcontractor as well. Thank you.
Awesome, wonderful. Thank you, Halima. And last but not least, Rishi Banat. Rishi?
Mute myself. Okay, there we go. And give me just a minute while I share my screen.
Okay.
Share. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rishi Banot, and I'm the president of Bear Environmental. We perform the testing, transportation, and disposal of industrial waste, meaning that whenever chemicals are manufactured or automotive parts are made, sometimes wastes are generated that you simply can't put down the drain or inside of a trash can. The reason could be is that they're flammable or they're corrosive or maybe they're contaminated with oil, whatever it may be. In that case, we come on site, we determine exactly what they are through EPA testing. We haul them off according to DOT compliant measures, whether it be in a 5-gallon bucket of lead acid batteries or a 5,000-gallon tanker of wastewater. And then the last thing we do is we perform the treatment and disposal of said waste in an environmentally compliant way, as well as a cost-effective way. And we want to do this so that we keep our clients compliant. We keep them focused on what is that they should be doing. And the last thing is we want to keep our environment clean and our drinking water safe. So that's just a little bit about our company. I started this company in 2009, and I skipped the slide, but that's okay. And here's just some of the clients that we worked with. I started off on the private side, and that's where I really knew how to do projects and how to execute and perform environmental projects. And I assumed that I could take this skill set and apply it to the federal marketplace. And it took me a long time to learn to actually how to do that. It was a very humbling experience. I remember meeting with Shonda years ago, and one of the first things she said is, where's your capability statement? And I said, what's that? And this capability statement that I put together was absolutely awful. And we can talk about that a little bit more when I explain to you some of our successes, as well as a whole lot of failures, which were just learning and stumbling blocks along the way. We started doing work initially as a subcontractor through a company called Tetra Tech. Tetra Tech was a holder of some large environmental contracts, and we had marketed them to show them our skill set. And our first thing we did was for the city of Columbus, and we moved 2 boxes of contaminated soil, and it was a big win for us. From there, we grew, and we started to do work with Franklin County. We did work with the Ohio Turnpike, and then eventually the U.S. Army, as well as Air National Guard this year, ODOT. So we've learned this process, and it was a challenge. It wasn't what I initially thought that it was. And, I believe that it was Jackie who brought it up, and I was just nodding as she was talking, because that was something that she talked about was process and values. And those are 2 things that really I hold dearly, and are 2 things that if you want to be successful, you need to find partners that are willing to follow processes with you and have the patience to do so, to do the right thing, as well as companies and employees and people who identify the same values as you. So that way your cultures are really in sync.
Okay, thank you, Rishi. I said Rishi was last, but he wasn't. We actually have Miss Judith Politi of Judith Politi Interior Design. We definitely want to hear from Judy and give us a little bit of information about who you are, what you do, and maybe about your company.
Thank you, Sharon. Or Shonda. Hi. So I'm Judy Politi. I am President, CEO of Judith Politi Interior Design. We also work in the private sector as well as in the government sector. We work on the local level, state, nationally, and recently on the international scene. So that is exciting for us.
Wow.
We work as subcontractors as well as prime on some contracts. We currently have a contract with the Columbus Port Authority, which is the Rickenbacker Air Force Base, or no, I'm sorry, not Rickenbacker Airport, Bolton Field, and John Glenn International Airport, where we hold the interior design contract, which we're a prime on, but we're also a subcontractor on the architectural contract and it's a 5-year contract. So I've been in business since 2003,
Wow.
which is quite a while. Doesn't seem like it, but quite a while. And Shonda was my PTAC counselor many years ago and has really helped me. Hi, Sharon. Has helped me. And Sharon helped me as well. That we'll get into that at some point, I'm sure.
Yes.
But you know, we're certified. We have grown through the years and really have been blessed to be a part of this whole team that has been backing us through the years. We're professional services. We don't provide goods, so our contracts are, at least in the government sector, we do not provide goods. So we're a specifier of goods, and we are service oriented. So our contracts are a little bit different. We're not responding, we're responding to RFQs on a regular basis. So that's a little bit of a different process, and we can touch on that as we move forward. So, but thank you for the opportunity to be here today.
Oh, no, thank you. So you can see that we have a nice broad range of companies that we have, from the IT and IT firm, construction related, as far as environmental management, furniture, commercial interior design. So we have a nice mixture for you. A couple of things before we get started. I never want to assume that everyone on the webinar is aware of some of the terms that we use, the terminology. So as far as when we talk about subcontracting and prime contracting, as it relates to you getting a contract with a government entity, a company that has a direct contract where they actually sign the contract with that government agency, they are considered a prime contractor. And so if another company is doing some work for that prime contractor and they sign an agreement with the prime contractor, they're considered a subcontractor. Another term that you may hear for subcontracting is teaming. And in teaming, it's a prime sub relationship. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. But as we begin to delve into the questions, one of the things I think somebody brought up, and I think I definitely want to highlight, and the panelists know, I've kind of put it throughout the questions, is we want to highlight not just the successes, but some of the failures and mistakes, because that's a reality of business. It's a reality of you being in business. And sometimes those failures and mistakes are the things that help you to grow and to get to the next level. So with that said, we want to delve into both of those and want to highlight those just so that those that are on the webinar can kind of hear and see how you've taken maybe failures or mistakes and use them to kind of grow, build your business, and go to the next level. And with that said, I'd like to start out. I'm going to pull these up. I'm going to read these, kind of a 3-part question, because I recognize that some people that are on the panel, I'm sure we have a broad range of small businesses, those that have been in business many, many years and that are experienced, those that are in the kind of the middle section, maybe been in business 5, 7, 10 years. And then I'm sure we have nascent companies, those that are emerging, just starting. So kind of a three-part question.
Okay, it looks like Shonda might have lost her internet. And I am not certain what her question was. Do any of you have questions for our panelists? If you do, please put it in. Please put it down in the chat, and we'll get back to that here in a minute. Hopefully, Shonda will be back with us. So do any of our panelists have any kind of tips that you felt were important that you thought would help you get into the government contract arena that you'd like to talk about?
Sharon, I see a question popped up that's kind of related to that. It says, what helped you transition from being a 1, 2, or 3 person business to where you are now? Comment on mentoring if applicable. I'd be happy to jump in and start us on that one. You know, I started my business sitting at my kitchen table. It was just me. And so this is no office. This is just you and a vision or a plan. And I always say I stepped out on faith and really started working, you know, my network. You're trying to build and talk to people who you already have relationships with. A lot of guidance and advice from mentors or people in the industry whose paths that I'd crossed, that I admired, or that I just, you know, liked the way they operated, you know, just asking a lot of questions in the beginning because I really was trying to find out what direction I wanted to go. I received some good advice, and this is related to that 1 or 2, 3 person question. I had a retired 3-star who was on the board of a company that I'd worked with early in my career. And he said, hey, Jackie, you know, you're going off on your own. You have to make a decision early on. Do you want to be a consultant or do you want to build a business? Because you can't do both. You can't spend all your time, you know, where you're doing all the work to make money and then you're not spending the time and the thought process and all those things, strategic thinking that you have to really invest in to build a business. So that's really what my advice is to really talk to people you admire, talk to people that are where you want to be, right? If you see this is where I want to be, those are the people you want to talk to. So thank you. Anybody else? I'll go ahead and mute.
Thank you.
I can add to that the question about how did you transition from being a 1, 2, or 3 person business? Today we have 6 people, and it was funny because similar to Jackie, I started out in my home office. I was there for 10 years, finally went into brick and mortar, there for about 2 years, and then COVID hits, and then everybody's kind of remote again. But the beauty of it is because I did a lot of things remotely, it helped to quickly transition everyone into that atmosphere. And I actually already had a few employees that were working remotely most of their time. So I think that, you know, that's one of the things that's helped me grow. The other thing is I did reach out and look for different talent with people that I knew that had either some type of staffing agency or some assistance where I could use people for project specific needs as opposed to having someone on the payroll where it might not have all of the hours that are necessary to maintain that person. So I just had to figure out the best balance of what positions and what tasks these people were going to do within the business, and then how to manage that with the right number of people in the organization so that I didn't have all these people and we didn't necessarily have a need for them at any given time. So that's one of the things. And then networking. So I meet people along the way. There's people that are just specifically working in one type of skill or trade that where we're delivering furniture. Well, we may need assistance because it's a large job and we can have them be part of that job as a subcontractor. So those are the type of things you look at, because even people with similar businesses to yours can be partners and can help you scale if necessary, and can help you meet different levels of capacity. Thank you.
I think I'm going to tag on that a little bit too, Halima, because we had the opportunity to work together at one point. And I agree with you in so many ways that you need to build your network as you grow your business, because you do not know the ups and downs as we're all seeing right now. And it's really beneficial to be able to draw on other people in your field and be able to use their skills. And it's a trusted group of people. So you have to develop that trusted group of people around you as you grow, I feel. There you go.
Great, thank you.
I see somebody ask a question about interest in joint ventures with newbies. I think that kind of speaks to, you know, trusted group of people. I think, again, as you're building your network, you reach out to people that have similar values as your company and goals. And then you might look at projects that they've done and different information before you jump into something with them. Make sure that they're going to be a strong partner, because you do have to be careful and you're putting your company out there to do something and you're relying on partners to do what they're going to do. Yes, I think there are cases. There's one case where we did do a partnership or joint venture with a newbie where they held the contract and we actually came in as a sub. And the goal was to help them to achieve some past performance.
Yeah, and I would just piggyback on that and just say, you know, I always say joint ventures are you know, it's like dating and marriage. You know, if someone just comes to you who you haven't met, it's like someone just walked up to you and say, you want to get married? It's like, can we date a little bit first? Can we get to know each other? So you really have to build that relationship. You know, there are things where you're opportunistic, where it may make sense, but there is a risk, right? And so you have to understand the risk and make sure that you're able to mitigate them if they should arise.
And if I may jump in and add, I'm back. With the joint ventures, just to kind of give a little backdrop, I don't know if anybody kind of explained, again, don't want to take for granted that everybody on the call may know what a joint venture is, but it is another kind of form of teaming, but actually a joint venture is when two or more companies kind of come together and they form a new entity, a brand new company. But in that joint venture relationship, one of those companies is the majority managing member, either in most case scenarios is 51% or more, depending on how many partners. And so that managing member, the joint venture will take on the past performance or whatever projects or contracts that both of those companies have done in the past. That joint venture will be a merger or a marriage of both of those companies, and that new entity, that new company, can take the past performance of both of those companies, and then whatever certifications that managing member, the one that has the majority of ownership in the joint venture can take on those certifications. And so a lot of companies form joint ventures to go after larger contracts that they can't go on, they can't perform on their own because they don't have the past performance. So a lot of times it expands that company's past performance base, and it can make them more attractive to go after a contract. And with that, if the panelists could maybe explain, kind of go into details and maybe give some advice to those that are interested, because I'm sure we probably have quite a few people that are on the webinar that are interested in doing business with the government. and they've never done business with the government. And I know I've heard stories, some of you, I think Halima, you, one of your first contracts was at the federal level, and typically that's not the case. Typically companies start off at the local level or with the state. But if we can hear from the panelists to find out, what advice would you give to those that are interested in doing business with the government? And then how would you advise them to prepare? Because it is a good way to start off with subcontracting, but what else could they be doing to prepare?
So if I can actually start off, if that's okay, because I threw that out there, but there's a caveat to it. Prior to starting my business, did a lot of events with SBA, with PTAC. I made it a point to learn as much as I could about doing business with the government before I actually pursued those first contracts. So even though, you know, it looks like, okay, I just jumped out there and here go somebody handed me a bunch of contracts, that wasn't the case. I actually did about 2 years worth of research while I was still working my day-to-day job for another company. And I would take time to go to some of the free learning events, anything I could, you know, the matchmakers, anything that I could to get as much information. And then I took a focused approach once I learned who my ideal customer might be and how they purchased and how I could pursue opportunities with them. That is why I was probably more than likely than anything else successful that fast, as well as I knew to go after set-aside contracts because I'm also a veteran. I'm a service disabled veteran. And I realized that there are contracts set aside for that socioeconomic group that the federal government, certain agencies have goals. And so once I learned that information, that helped me to target. And so I went after some opportunities that were set aside. The key thing is I also knew that I could perform. And I also had established my network of who would be possibly working with me on those contracts. So we talked about our relationships, and actually I went to a former employer that I worked with that I knew had some resources that were not only what I would want to offer my customer because I worked for them, I also knew that I could sit down at the table and ask for certain things and they would be willing to do that because those are the type of things that they did as an organization. So I always tell people, you know, think about the people you know. A lot of people won't think about someone they've worked for in the past, right? But you just have to think that they too can be a resource for you. And at that time, I probably didn't even really have a good idea of what my relationship was with them because I had left the company probably 4 or 5 years before that. But understood that I did a good job for them, that they had some great resources and ability to help me reach other markets. So it took some planning. It wasn't just overnight, hand me a contract. And people, I want you to be very, you know, alert. Think about who you want to do business with in that space, whether it's federal or state, and why you want to do business with them. But you also have to have your value add proposition as to why they should do business with you.
Very good response. Anyone else want to add to that? I love, she said she did 2 years worth of research and planning. You don't find a lot of companies, they're just like, I just want to get that contract. I see it's a large contract. I just need to get it. And you did a focused approach for your ideal customer as to how they purchase. So excellent advice. Looks like Judy is ready.
I'll pop in there. I agree with Halima as well. I think that, you know, most times people see you where you are, but never know what you've done to get there. Yes. So I think that there's a couple of things. I think you have to be hungry. I think you have to want to get out there and by being hungry, I mean, you have to get out there and research and get all the information that you can. You know, I joke that I'm a 30-year overnight success. So it's, it's one of those things where you're working all the time and people don't know you're working all the time. So again, you have to be hungry. You have to get out there and learn everything that you can do. I also went to every council, everyone knows this who's in the government who knows me, is, you know, I ask for help. So you have to be humble about what you know and what you don't know, and understand that there are people out there who are there to help you, and they want to help you. And I thank Sharon Smith, I know is on here, and she will know that I came into her office one time just saying, what do I do? And this is another thing, know your value. Sharon taught me, know your value, know what you have to offer, and get out there and talk to every person that's out there who you think has a need. Now you're going to miss a couple hundred times before you get one, and that's fine, but don't be afraid to do that. And that goes back to being hungry. And then go back to the people who are there to help you. Shonda introduced me to, I can't tell you how many people. We have formed partnerships in the private sector as well as in the government sector. So, and you do narrow your search as time goes by. I know well, I've known Sharon since 2008 when everything collapsed, and developed a plan to go out, because we're professional services. So we are a subcontractor for engineers or for architects. So I made it a point of getting out there and doing all of that.
Judy, can I interrupt real quick? Because I know the story. Yeah. Can you just go ahead and expand upon that story about when you went to meet with Sharon Smith, and she's referring to Sharon Smith, who's the statewide director of the PTACs. Can you go into that story? Because I think it's a good segue to you encouraging people to stay hungry and humble. Just kind of talk about that story.
Okay, so in 2008, when everything collapsed, I had just bought my office building. So there's a little bit of a setback, right? So no business, nothing going on. I called down to get some help, because you have to be humble and hungry, both at the same time. And I, just by luck, ended up with Sharon. And I said, she tried to explain everything to me, and I had no idea what she was talking about. Honestly, I had no idea what she was. I said, can I come in, please, and talk to you about this? Because I really don't understand. And so she was kind enough to let me come in, and actually said to me, which I thought was pretty great, you're actually a real business. She said, you have a portfolio, you have all of these things. Let's see what we can do. So she pointed me to PTAC, and she also helped me interface with facility managers of every facility in the state. And I ended up calling every single one. I'll never forget when Sharon said to me, she said, they have a goal and they have to meet it. So you call them and you say, I know that you have a goal. How can I help you meet it? And these are the services that I provide. And a lot of people hung up on me, and a lot of people said, we don't have anything. And finally, I got a job in Gallup Police at the MRDD, replacing floors. And I was so grateful, I cannot even tell you. So, but it encourages you, you know, every little success moves you forward. And I'm not afraid to ask anyone for anything anymore. And I know that I don't know everything, but I'm willing to learn every turn of the way. So does that help at all?
Yes. Okay. Great story. Great story.
I love that story.
Yeah. And
I tell it every chance I get, but I do thank the people with PTAC and everyone who's helped, because it's very difficult to navigate without that assistance. It really, truly is.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Good plug for PTAC. Anyone else, Kevin or Jackie or Rishi, on those that are getting started and want to do business with the government, what advice would you give them on how they could prepare?
Yeah,
Rishi.
Identifying who you want to work for. You want to identify your service radius, and make sure it's a place where you can actually perform to the highest level. Now, for some of you, you may be able to perform remote work. You could do work all over the country, or maybe even outside of the United States. For us, we are physically dispatching trucks. We are mobilizing waste, heavy equipment, personnel. we're moving waste from county to county or city to city. So we had to identify, where are we going to perform well? Where do we have the strongest network? And also, you know, environmental services is a really large scope. So sometimes we would come across opportunities that we would have to identify, is this really in our wheelhouse? Are we going to take a calculated risk and go on something that we don't really know that well? Or are we going to stick with something that we know that that's our bread and butter work? Because the last thing you want to do is fall on your face or go out there and then not perform. Because then you have that stain on you and you can't really get it off. So understand where your capabilities start and end. Understand who you're selling to, understand the buying process and all of the acronyms that they throw at you. Because year one, it was all alphabet soup to me. And I didn't know the difference between PTAC, DBE, MB, county buying, city buying. You know, it was all just swirling around in my head. And it took me, I want to say, probably 2 years to really figure it out.
It does. Yeah, great point, Rishi, and I can't stress enough, this will probably be like this webinar, a PTAC and SBDC infomercial, but if you're on here and, you know, if you are getting excited about what they're saying and you're just getting started, the PTAC is a great resource to help you from beginning to end, cradle to grave, as it relates to you getting started as a vendor to do business with the government. And each level is different: federal, state, city, county, and then also getting that contract once you win the contract. And even after the post-award, the PTAC really is a great resource to kind of help you navigate all of those different areas all throughout. MBAC as well, absolutely. Thank you for stressing that. The MBAC, Minority Business Assistance Center, is also a great resource and also to help you get certifications. So thank you for somebody just typed that up. Kevin or Kaylee, did you want to respond to that before we go to the next question?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I was going to say, when you want to start business with the government, you really need to know how you're going to stand out to them. Like, what can you do to make their life easier? They want to know that you're going to have all your paperwork in. They want to see that you're, know what you're talking about, you know what you're doing. And just, again, like, they wanted your paperwork. That's a big thing. And they know that you're going to do the process right. So proving, like, a lot of that through subcontracting, again, that you're on those job sites and that you do what you said you're going to do while you're subcontracting. So when the opportunity comes for maybe an 8A set aside, they'll have you in mind.
Yes.
Yeah, and then I'd like to add that the business matchmakers, when we first got into the 8A program, was a great way to meet people and find out what they needed. The matchmaker at the Nutter Center was a great big help. And the other small business, we went to one up in NASA, and we went to the national one 2-3 times. But to get your face out there, to get in front of people, it gives you an opportunity, because sometimes these government facilities can't always get a pass to get to everybody. I've always been fortunate to be able to get on right path, but you can't get in DESE, you can't get in the Air National Guard. And you can leave a message or two, but if they don't respond, what are you going to do? The conferences give you that chance to shake somebody's hand, hand them a capability statement, and tell them what you can do.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Kevin. And again, I do want to emphasize, with our resource partners, definitely the PTACs can help you with this process. The MBACs, Minority Business Assistance Centers, I know they also counsel with small businesses. They can help you with the capability statements, helping you to kind of look at bids. The SBDC, even though they don't assist with procurement and doing business with the government, but anything related to your business, the SBDCs can help. Maybe if it's your financial statements. So definitely checking out those resources, our resource partners, because they're offered at no charge, but just a great way to help you at different points along your business. And you may utilize them at one point, you start to grow, you advance, you do well, and then you hit maybe a challenge, and then you need to follow up with them and touch base with them again, but they're always going to be there, but great resources for you. Kind of moving along to the next question, somebody mentioned about setbacks when they were giving their comments. So if you can name maybe 2 significant events, whether it was an experience, a contract you had, challenge, a setback that helped shape your business early on, and how did it help you to prepare to become a successful government contractor?
I think I was there.
Oh, go ahead, Kaylee.
Okay, sorry. I'll say a big setback for us was when we first applied for the SBA 8A program. You know, we were denied. Like, we really thought we'd get in, and we were excited about the opportunity to maybe be able to do it. And so we got the denial back. It was really upsetting and kind of discouraging at first, but it didn't allow us to give up. We didn't stop. You know, we went out and learned, you know, hired someone to help us and what we needed to do, professional more, to be like, okay, this is what you need, and making sure we had everything to fill out that application. And just, again, you don't give up, you try again, even if you make it the first time.
That's true. And if I may add before somebody jumps in, she's talking about the 8A certification is for companies that are doing business at the federal level, for companies that are economically and socially disadvantaged. It's a certification you get for 9 years, and contracts are set aside for 8A firms. Now, at any level of government, they do have various different certifications. Just want to clarify, you do not have to have a certification to get a contract. There are contracts that are set aside for those certifications, but you don't have to have that to start doing business with a government agency. You can just be a small business and start off that way. Certifications are definitely a great value add and a tool to assist you in your process, but it's not, you don't have to, it's not a requirement that you have to have those to do business with a government agency. Looks like Rishi, you may be ready to, oh, Kaylee, you have something else?
Yes, like not a requirement, but it's, you know, the set asides in the 8A, like that has really helped with growing, being able to be the prime contractor, yes, and to get the past performance to now be able to do those projects not under an 8A.
Yes, and the 8A, one of the benefits, great benefit of the 8A program, it's a great way to help kind of give you an entrance point and an onboarding, a springboard into the federal market. So a lot of times as a small business, it's kind of hard for you to penetrate getting into the federal market as a small company. Definitely if you have subcontracting experience, that can help. But the 8A certification is a good way to kind of help give you an inroads into the federal market. So thank you for that, Kaylee. Rishi, it looks like you are ready to jump in and add some feedback.
Yeah, you know, something that coming from the private industry that I had no idea about, and PCI I'm sure has to deal with this too, is probably bonding. I did not know anything about bonding. I thought you had to have, you know, you have your insurance, you carry amount, this amount that they require. Maybe they have an excess liability clause, and that's it. Our first big government contract, there was a bidder's bond. We won it, and I did not include a bidder's bond because I didn't know. I thought that you have a performance bond and that you take care of that after the award is issued. So they contacted us, and I'm grateful that they did so. And they said, we need a bidder's bond. I said, what's that? And I basically had to get a cashier's check, and I drove it to them. So because I wanted to make sure we got it in on time. And yeah, we were able to be awarded the contract. And then when it came to an actual performance bond, you know, we needed one quickly. And I didn't exactly have the inroads to do it. I had never been bonded before. So we ended up paying a hefty fee to get it done. And it really cut our margins on the project. And a quick shout out to the Ohio Development Services Agency, who now bonds us at a much, much better rate than we first got when we first started. At a much higher amount too, which then helps us get other projects.
Thank you. Anybody else want to add any feedback to that question, Jackie?
I was just going to jump in, and it's kind of tied to the couple of topics that we've been discussing, you know, that I always, when I'm talking to businesses who are entering to the federal space, to make sure that, you know, you should do this in business, but you really need people with particular skills that understand government contracting is a good lawyer, because you're going to be dealing with contracts and agreements that have language that you may not be familiar with in the commercial world. A good accountant.
Awesome.
Again, you know, there's a different way that when you're pricing and some things, especially if you have to go through a DCAA audit, that's the Defense Contract Audit Agency. You may have requirements that require that type of certification. And then the third is a great banking relationship, because you can run into where the government, depending, sometimes they can be a little slow to pay, or run into issues with the wider flow that Sharon was mentioning. And you may have started an opportunity and you're paying people, and you may need a line of credit or just some other things. And you really want to have those relationships established in advance. So you can start working on those now before you even have your first contract. You can start building all those relationships.
Yes. Great feedback.
And then, I'm sorry, can you hear me, Shonda?
No, yes.
I just wanted to also add, one of the things that I would recommend, especially if you're bidding or you're looking at opportunities, one thing that happened for us is there was a bid that we were very excited to work on, but we had a good chance at getting it and we did not. So I want to make sure that everyone understands that on a lot of the federal government bids and some of the others, you can actually ask for a debriefing. And you can do that. Sometimes they'll do it as a call, sometimes they'll do it as an in-person meeting, but I often tell people that that's an opportunity to really learn from that customer what they were looking for, so that if you want to pursue other opportunities with them, you can, you take that criticism and take it as constructive and use it that way. And then the other thing is that in some cases that can be your interview. We just bid on a large contract here locally for furnishings. We did not get the contract. I did request a debriefing. After we had some conversation with them, they said, you know what, we actually have some other furniture on this job and you're going to get another piece of it already for flooring.
Wow.
So we want to make sure we circle back and talk to you because we didn't get all of that from your submittal. We miss those things, but now that we know that, we know we can use you on some other stuff too. So a lot of times they have done the way that they wanted them done, but you also may find that they either give you another chance to bid it, may go back out to bid for whatever reason after they look at the person they plan to award it to, or B, there's other opportunities in the future that now you have a little more insight on what they want for their proposal and you can apply that to that. So yeah, a lot of times, you have wins, you have losses, but take those losses and try to see if you can use them to mold that next opportunity to become yours.
Great feedback, Halima. Thank you. And for those that may be listening, she talked about a debrief. So if you are doing business with a government agency and you bid on a contract, you have the ability to request a debrief if you lose. Or learning when I was with PTAC, even if you win, you can ask that agency, hey, can I have a debrief? And it's an opportunity for you to engage with the agency to find out more specifically, if you didn't win the contract, find out why. So a learning experience, and like Halima said, take it as constructive criticism so that, and maybe it was something on your pricing, but you definitely wanna request that debrief and request it right away so that you can learn. Maybe it was something small that you forgot in your proposal. Maybe it's something large that you really do need to focus on that you're not aware of. And maybe you've been doing business at the local and state level and you've been very successful, and then you're transitioning to do business at the federal level and it's a little different. So you do want to find out what those things are that maybe hindered you from getting that contract, so that the next time you go to bid or the next time that you go to bid on something, you're aware of that and you can adjust and adapt accordingly. So great
Shonda,
feedback.
Shonda, I've also done that with potential prime contractors that we wanted to be subcontractors for. And
Oh,
so
that's a
that's the
great.
other thing. I have done that with them as well. So as we're talking about subcontracting opportunities, you know, you're also building a relationship with that potential prime. And if you're not willing to have that, try to have that conversation and open the door, figure out, okay, I didn't get this opportunity with this prime, but I need to know why. Was it actually something in my proposal the end user did not like, or was it something that did not sit well with the actual prime I want to be a sub for? So make sure that you try to have that dialogue both ways, whether it's directly with the government agency or if it's with a potential prime contractor.
Okay, great.
You know,
Wonderful advice.
Shonda, also, I will say that even when I've won contracts, I do ask them, why did you select us?
Great, great
and
advice.
they'll say, well, in your application, there are these certain things, or they'll tell you things about the other people that applied for it and why they didn't get it. So I think every experience brings you to the new level, but I think it's a great way to start off a contract as well, to say, we're so happy to be here. Can you tell us why, you know, we know why we're here. Could you tell us why you think why we were selected? So it starts everything off on a positive note too, I think.
Great advice. Great advice. Great feedback from everyone. As Halima was sharing about, she asked kind of for a debrief as she was working with the prime. What advice would you give to, because I think it was Jackie that spoke on really when you're doing subcontracting and especially you're looking to make an entrance into the federal market, a lot of times it can be difficult and it can be challenging, and maybe there's this opportunity that you're dying to get, and you meet a company. What advice would you give to individuals as far as them engaging and looking for the right prime contractor? Maybe you found a company and they may have all the core competencies, but something just doesn't sit right with you. Jackie and Rishi talked about values. How important is it to develop that relationship with that prime contractor that you're going to be doing business with? Somebody also talked about trust. What are some of the things that the small businesses should be looking for? What kind of advice would you give them as to how to look for a prime contractor and developing those relationships? Anybody want to start off? Jackie?
I think you have to start with asking a lot of questions. I mean, I think sometimes we tend to just focus on the requirement, right? It's do you do A, okay, I do B. That's all we need to know. But there's so much more in delivering on a contract. Things about how you communicate with the customer. That's a prime subcontract. You'll find that different, companies have different preferences. Some will say, hey, the prime, we're the only ones that will ever have any conversation. If the customer asks you something, you refer them to us. Others may say, hey, for your piece, because you're the specialist on this, you can interact because that's not really what part we're doing. So it's okay if you talk to them. I think what I found that I didn't expect is if you are partnering on an opportunity, and we're a services company, so we have people involved, and they're in a shared workspace. So when you start talking about things like benefits and compensation and just how you treat people, when two people are sitting next to each other and they're saying, hey, my company did A, how come you don't do this? Or they did this. It can be very, very tricky. So you just have to know up front, I'm not saying your benefits and the way you do business are going to be identical to a partner, but you at least want to know, right? I mean, we have a big holiday party. That's our thing. I mean, we have a bash. And I found, some of my partners didn't really do that. They gave their employees a pin or something, and there's nothing wrong with a pin.
Right.
But,
right.
But some of my, subcontractors were like, well, wait a minute. So if you know that going in, you can start to manage expectations, do other things because you want it to be a seamless team. You want everyone to be working together, and you want to try to avoid any issues that could arise. So I just think asking a lot of questions about how they conduct their business is very important.
great suggestions. Looks like Halima, you.
Yes, I wanted to speak a little bit about the part of your question, how do you find the right prime contractors and how do you develop that relationship? I will tell you that, you want to, again, focus on your ideal customer, whether it's the federal or state market. Know what it is they're looking for. You can identify who the primes are for the type of work that you're interested in doing. Once you identify those primes, there's a few different ways. You can, of course, try to reach out directly. But one of the things I found, for example, the Department of Veteran Affairs, they had a networking event that was hosted down in New Orleans about a year and a half ago that was focused on IT and technology. Knowing that that was an area that we were getting into, I made it a point to attend that event and was able to network with all of the primes. All of the primes had some type of session that you could sit in on, and you could gather information and connect with them there. The other thing is you could look at what it is they're doing for that agency and determine if your organization can fill a niche or maybe has some new technology that could be coupled into theirs, or some type of service you can provide that would enhance what they're actually doing for that organization. That would give you the opportunity to find out who the contact is, as well as you already have a value proposition to try to bring into the conversation. So, they're going to be important that you follow up, have a very focused plan on follow up, what you intend to follow up on. There's other primes that may be doing something similar. I think one of the projects I learned about was a very large project, and they were saying approaching them, let them know about you and your services and how you would like to support them, and you're missing an opportunity. So a lot of times it's about being in the process, and today we have actually the luxury of attending a lot of these events virtually. I just encourage people to do so, especially right now while you don't have to fly to New Orleans or try to spend those extra expenses to be there. I think it's opening the door for people to have opportunities to be in the room where we couldn't before. And then look at any industry partners that, if you're in this beyond the services industry, if you're offering products, let's say you're a distributor, talk to those wholesale organizations or those manufacturers and see if they can help you get into the door. I've had many of my manufacturers reps connect me with reps in other markets where I wanted to do business. Right. They would open me up, bring me into opportunities where they had, where they could use our specialties.
Great. Great. Thank you, Halima. Rishi and Kevin or Kaylee, you want to add anything to that?
There we go. Yeah, so I agree with what everyone said. We talked a lot about alignment of goals and values and culture. And, when I first started doing business, it was with my mentor, someone who I really trusted. And we basically had a handshake deal, which was fine by me. He was an old school kind of guy, and I'm kind of an old soul. So I said, that's good. And I quickly realized you can't do that. On top of having a good CPA and having a good attorney, it makes sense to document exactly what your expectations are. And if the things ever come up where there's a discrepancy, then address them immediately. Don't think that they're going to somehow work themselves out organically. Go ahead and address them slowly and head on. And yeah, that documentation helps to go back to, what we talked about, because then the projects are big, the scope of works are large. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, things change, and it's important to have that there, because truly it protects you as well as your client and the other companies that you guys are involved in, who are all achieving this one goal.
Great point. Excellent. To Rishi's point, I'd like to add, if you are, looking to engage and get into a relationship with a prime, making sure that you have a teaming agreement. And like he said, if there are any discrepancies, and making sure that you get everything in writing. Because a lot of times, I'm sure our panelists have heard stories, and maybe they've experienced this where, you know, maybe there's a verbal agreement on some things and some things weren't put in writing. And then as you start to execute the contract, the individuals that, you know, you're teaming with, they started to do something different. And so making sure that you have it in writing, that teaming agreement, if you're doing a joint venture, having a joint venture agreement, and especially as you're delving into the federal government market, looking for an attorney that kind of specializes in those areas. So just to, as Rishi said, to make sure that you're covering yourself. And as you're going after those larger contract vehicles that are in the millions of dollars, it definitely is worth to protect your company and to protect your business. So great points. Kevin and Kaylee, did you have anything that you wanted to chime in on this question before we move on?
Well, on working as a subcontractor in the construction, working for general contractors, it pays to do your research to find out if the customers are happy with the general contractor, because some of these jobs, they're low price bid, so they'll continue to get work. That doesn't necessarily mean the government likes what they're ultimately getting. And then try to find out if the projects are finishing on time, how they're run, talk to some of the other subcontractors on site. How do they pay? Some people take 6 months to pay you, other people pay you in 30 days. That's a big difference. But that's some of the things that I always try to do before I go to work as a subcontractor for a GC.
Excellent point, Kevin, that you brought up. I want to echo that. As you are looking to do business with a prime, ask around, not just maybe the agency. How does the agency look at them? Does the agency think that they're a great contractor, that they do good work? Also ask other companies. One thing I know in working with my 8A firms, working as a PTAC counselors, other small businesses will tell you. They will tell you. So just kind of ask around about that company's reputation, of them doing business, and how they perform. So I think asking questions is definitely a wonderful suggestion and advice. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, everybody. I know as I transition to the next question, someone asked, is there a PTAC counselor that can help with their elevator speech? We talked about your capability statements and your elevator speech as you're getting ready for the matchmaker. Absolutely. The PTAC counselors can help with that. The MBAC counselors can also help. They can review your capability statement and listen to your pitch before you give it so that you can prepare before the matchmaker. You can just find your closest counselor to you and set up an appointment to do that. I want to go back into, you guys have been very successful in your industry in the various different markets, and definitely in the government market. And several of you are doing business kind of at all levels, federal, state, city, county, or have done, and even the universities and colleges. But just to kind of bring it home, if you can kind of describe maybe one of your biggest failures or mistakes that you made as a subcontractor, and specifically, what lessons did you learn from it? How did it help you to grow? And then how did those failures and mistakes contribute or prepare you for greater success as a prime contractor? So a lot of times, companies don't want to, or if they make a failure or mistake, they mess up on a contract, they think, oh, I need to close my doors. My business I'm an absolute failure. But you can bounce back from that. So I'm sure you guys have experienced some type of failure, setback as a subcontractor. So how did you learn from that? How did that prepare you to be a prime and maybe to move on to a different level of government? So does anybody want to tackle that question first?
I'll jump on that. It's okay.
Go ahead.
An important lesson. So basically, I ignored a lot of the advice that this panel gave today. And some of it I knew, and I ignored it because I became impatient. In particular, there was one job where we were contacted late. And, you know, the prime could basically perform the 10% where we couldn't. And that 90% was our bread and butter work. I knew we could do it and do it really easily. I said, you know, that's not an issue. The issue is that time was winding down. We were, you know, needed to get this bid together in one day because, you know, it was due at 5 o'clock. And, you know, we didn't do our due diligence. I blindly trusted someone. I sent over quotes to be signed. They didn't get signed because in the mix, we were just trying to get in and get it in on time. And we had a process, and I foolishly ignored that process, trying to just get it in and get work. And, you know, when we went out to go to perform the work, that's where we realized that, you know, our requests and our expectations, they were not respected. And, you know, ultimately it turned out to not be a good project. It got done, but not to our standard. And it was something I wasn't proud of, and it bothered me for a long time. You know, we also learned that prime was not having good experiences within this division of government at other places. So, you know, luckily it was a smaller project. It's nothing that, you know, put us out where we had to close the doors or anything like that, or where we were at risk. But it burned, and it wasn't fun. And if my mistakes are something that any of you can learn from, then please do so.
Great point. I love the point, and maybe we'll come back to this after everybody gives their feedback about the processes that you had, but you ignored them for the sake of trying to get to the contract. So I wrote that down. Yes. Anybody else want to chime in? Great points, Rishi. Halima.
I'm sitting here trying to think of which mistake I want to talk about. So probably we'll just give you something in general. You know, we too have made mistakes along the way. I remember a situation where we were working with a designer in another state, and basically what was put out to the customer was not what I felt like we would have done here from our in-house. And we were able to finish the job. And I just was terrified at the idea of going back and asking the customer for any feedback, because I just knew it was awful. Well, I ended up in this executive education class about a year later. And there was an exercise where we were supposed to go out to a customer, reach out to one of our customers where we had probably less than, you know, desired performance, and ask them to fill out the feedback questionnaire. And so I actually sent it to this client and some others, and I was surprised to find out that the feedback was not as bad as I had perceived it. I think sometimes we're our own worst critics. And ultimately, they were kind of like, you know, where have you been? We've been hoping you'd reach out so we can do some more business. And I felt really bad then, because there was an opportunity there where I probably could have just contacted them, had the conversation, took the blows, you know, of how awful we did, and made some adjustments, as opposed to potentially letting a great client an opportunity go. You know, sometimes it's very difficult, and we often, in another situation, you know, we're talking about subcontracting with someone else as the prime. You know, I did a lot of my early work as a prime. And so everything that went wrong, it came on me anyway. Well, and then I was in control of the numbers and how much we were doing it for and how much margin. Well, as a subcontractor, you know, we put our bid out there sometimes and say, okay, well, this is great, but we need you to do this CPA financial audit. And okay, we'll get that. So start calling our accountant. Our accountant doesn't do it, and we end up 4 or 5 CPAs later and find out it's going to cost $4,000. So at that point, most of us would say, okay, I've got to eat $4,000 to get this project. But I went and contacted the prime and said, hey, you know, we can get this for you, but it's going to cost us something that we hadn't anticipated. Their response was, add it to your total. Had I not bought it up, I mean, all they can say is no, right? So instead, and I think oftentimes we go ahead and say, oh, you know, we'll just eat it. You know, if you have that conversation, and a lot of times they appreciate the fact that you can come to them and admit, I made a mistake. I'm sorry, you know, is there anything we can do about it? I had another situation where we had not gotten an invoice in time for some overage for project management. And they said, you know what? That ship's kind of sailed for that part of the project, but we've got this other area where we've got to redo the numbers anyway. Just add it to that.
Wow.
Don't be afraid to ask. All they can say is no. Then one other big point, we had an opportunity to try to be on a 5-year contract for doing furniture, healthcare furniture with the VA. We gave it 2 tries, very, very detailed process, hours, put our hearts into it, and we still were not accepted on that contract, which meant we weren't going to be able to do that particular type of business directly with the VA for 5 years. What I did do was find out who was on the contract. I even went out to Dallas to meet with one of the contract holders who basically gave us a list of things that we can do for them on this contract. So again, taking the initiative that, okay, I can be a subcontractor to one of the primes on this big contract. And we're talking a multi-billion-dollar contract. So yeah, we'll take some pieces of that if something comes down the pipe that they can't do. So, you know, felt really defeated after 2 tries and didn't get on there, but had to collect myself and think, okay, where can we be on this, still be a part of this opportunity?
Great, great different scenarios and advice with those. Wonderful. Thank you, Halima. Judy, we have not heard from you. I know you have several stories. Anything you want to chime in and add to the discussion?
So many.
I know you got to pick. You can do like Halima and share a couple.
I'm like Halima, thinking which one should I tell you? Goodness gracious. Okay, I'll do one from, we were working with a very large university, which some of you may or may not know, which I will not name. And we were a subcontractor on that job. Well, like Rishi said, sometimes you jump into these contracts because you're hungry. It goes back to what I was saying. You're hungry, you gotta be humble, and you have to know your value, right? So I was too hungry, took on, well, it happens, right? You get it's like the first humongous project that you get, and you go, oh, I'm gonna go for it. We performed, it was a 4-year contract, a total renovation of a building for a new college, it was huge. And we overperformed, frankly. But what I did not know was the prime on the contract, which I should have checked out before, did not include lead fees in his pricing. Therefore, he was trying to self-perform on some of the services that we had and decrease our contract. So it was a crazy thing. Anyway, it got pretty bad at the end as far as you have to, and it goes back to knowing who your prime is as well. Like, do they pay on time? Are they honest? You know, but again, when you're hungry, you do it, and you do much more work than you should. Anyway, payment was not forthcoming, and it was the end of the project, and Ohio State got, the university got
We didn't hear that. Delete off the tape.
Delete that out of the whole thing. University got involved, and you know, it was heartbreaking because it's your reputation, and you think to yourself, when you get your first huge contract, you think to yourself, gosh, am I ever going to get one here again? If there's a problem, is this a problem? Is this something that you go to them and discuss with them, or do you just suck it up, like Halima said? Do you just eat it or whatever? Well, I ended up with the head of contracts and the head of, real estate and the head of all of these things, which is terrifying, by the way. And what did I learn from it? To go in and tell the truth, be humble, tell them exactly what happened. And it's amazing what happens. They said, we love everything that you did. You've been on the project for 4 years. We're going to take care of it. And not only that, we have 5 more projects for you.
Wow.
So again, it goes back to Halima's point of, you know, don't be afraid. You can't be afraid. And Rishi's point of, you know, go ahead and, you know, if it doesn't feel right and your processes don't feel right and you go ahead with it, you're going to have a problem. So you just sort of, you learn and you grow through the whole thing. But yeah, I mean, listen, there's going to be a lot of failures. It's how you deal with the failures. You have to get up, brush yourself off, and, you know, you can have a moment, but you can't have, as an entrepreneur, you don't have time for even a day. You can't feel sorry for yourself. You have to say, okay, what did I do and how can I do it better next time? So, and I think too, as Halima says, is that you're your toughest critic. So I know that after every project, I go through it in my mind and say, okay, if even the best projects I've ever done, where I'm even amazed, I say, well, okay, what on this project could I have done better? So it's good to have outside sources telling you, you know, you're okay, you're doing all right. So, but anyway, no, I mean, I could go on for days with all those stories, but I thought that was probably a good one.
No, but and one of the reasons why I love these panels and I love working with you guys, and I've known somebody just typed the comment, I appreciate everyone's transparency. Thank you so much. Because sometimes, you know, you go to programs and you want to hear the realities, because these are small businesses that are looking to do business with the government or looking to do business, and it's not all roses. Judy has her beautiful pink roses, but in order to grow those roses, you had to have some fertilizer and some stuff that, you know, doesn't smell necessarily so good. So it's all the good, the bad, the ugly, and the in-between, but it's not just all successes, it's the failures. So what Halima said, what Judy said, you know, you're not always gonna win, you're gonna have some losses, some failures, but you gotta learn, how do you go forward from those? And I think more importantly, you're not gonna be afraid. How do you pick yourself back up? How do you deal with the failures? And not just going forward, but growing forward. How do you grow forward? How do you grow from that and learn? So with that, I'm always passionate and can talk. So, but it's not about me, it's about our panelists. So definitely Jackie and Kevin, if you want to chime in and add, because I know you guys have stories as well. I think, did we hear from Rishi?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yes. Go ahead, Kaylee.
Okay. I was going to add, you know, sometimes you really want a project and you want it bad, and you don't want to bid it too low just to get the project, because you're just going to hurt yourself more and your company more by getting projects and not making any money on them. So you have to be careful, even though you want it, to not, you know, mess with your numbers enough just to get it to win it, because you don't want to lose. And like same thing as a prime, like you have to keep doing that even as a prime contractor. If you want the project but you're too small to begin with on your numbers, and you have all the other subcontractors you have to support, you can't do that. You can't have numbers just to get the project.
Great. Yes, that is true. That is true. And working with so many companies, they think, oh, if I can just get this contract, and they'll try to do whatever they can, and, you know, manipulating the numbers. Great point, Kaylee. Yeah. But sticking to your processes and not, you know, going beyond them and getting ahead of yourself, because it can come back to bite you. Thank you, Kaylee. Jackie, did you have some things that you wanted to share on?
I would just say, you know, I've made every mistake that's been mentioned. I mean, if you've been in this business long enough, you've made these mistakes. And the only thing I would share is just really, you know, fail fast, learn from them, because a lot of times we know something's not right and we stay in it longer than we really should. We try to make this partnership work and we know it's not working. And then the last thing I would just share, one of the things I was excited about when I started my own business is I told myself, I'm going to listen to that inner voice, right? I'm listen to, because I think if I talked to everybody, you kind of knew something wasn't right, right? There was something nagging at you where you're like, or Rishi was talking about how I know going in, we were rushing. And, and that's the beauty of being an entrepreneur, because you have the opportunity that you make the final decision. So, you work for someone else, sometimes you're kind of got to follow the marching orders and do what you're told, and somebody else is telling you what to do. But you get an opportunity to say, is this right for me? Is this right for my business? Is this right for my customer, my employees? I mean, you get to make that decision. So I would just encourage you to please, you do your research, do your due diligence, but then sometimes it's just not numbers. It's not facts. I believe in that, just instincts. A lot of times those instincts are based on experience, right? It's where you've maybe been in a similar situation. So you're going, did I learn the lesson? Did I learn the lesson last time?
Learn the lesson. Yeah.
So that's what I would just encourage everyone to do.
Okay, great. See, we have about 15 minutes. I have some wonderful questions that I want to. What advice would the older seasoned you give the younger you as it relates to, because we have people that are chiming in and saying that they just love the transparency and this is helping them. It's so eye-opening to help them as a person just starting out in the exploration phase. So what would the older seasoned you give as advice to the younger you as it relates to starting your business in your industry and then getting started in government contracting? All the things that you've kind of gone through, your experiences, the contracts, what would the older seasoned you give advice to the younger seasoned you as it relates to, all that you've gone through?
Talk about that?
Yes.
I would say start with enough money. Make sure that you have enough, because if you take a look at a lot of our decisions that we made, or the mistakes that we made, and I'm going to talk about my own mistakes, they came from insecurity.
Wow.
That's why I rushed them. And I feel like sometimes when you see you don't have enough, you start making foolish mistakes because you're really insecure. And yeah, when you've got enough runway, some of those decisions are easier to make. Be patient, follow your process, and have enough in the bank to get by.
That's excellent, excellent point. And to that point, I know Sharon had typed in here, and I was looking for a good way to put this in. That's a good segue. The SBDCs are a great way if you're looking for access to capital as it relates to doing these projects. The Small Business Development Center can assist you with that. And as to somebody said earlier, I think it was Jackie, developing those relationships early before you need them with these projects and getting money. So want to hear quickly from some others, because I have several other great questions I want to get to.
Sure.
Yes, Halima.
My seasoned self would tell my younger self in business that I did do a lot of focus, like I said early on, because working in the government sector, even though I was a veteran, I had never done business with the government. So that was a huge learning curve for me. And so I did make a decision earlier on to do something that I already knew how to do and knew how to do well. But one of the other things I would tell myself to do is to get more business functioning experience. So later, I was able to do programs like the SBA Emerging Leaders and some of the other programs I've done along the way. But I would have loved to have had those courses earlier, so that I could have put together, outside of a capability statement, a better understanding early on about the finances and all of the things that go into, the operational side of the business beyond just myself and my home office. So it took 10 years to get out of that space, because it took that much time for me to get the knowledge and understanding of how to operate a business beyond just me and my home office.
All right, wonderful. Kaylee or Kevin? Or Jack, looks like Jackie's ready, I'm sorry.
I would just say, really do a self-inventory and know what you're good at. I think
Awesome.
things, know your weaknesses, know your strengths, because that's going to really help you, hire the right people in your organization or partner with the right organizations that complement what you do and fill gaps.
Yes.
Beginning, I was the CFO, I was the HR. And I know, again, as to Rishi's points, because you're trying to save money, right? You're saying, okay, I have so much money, so I have to do it all. But I didn't do it very well. and I look at it now and saying, man, if I had put a little more thought, knowing what my strong suits were, knowing where I should really focus my time, and then where I need to, save my dollars to put it towards. And I eventually figured it out, but it took me 2 or 3 years. Look at my team now, my leadership team. That's what they do. They fill all my gaps. They really do. They fill all the gaps that I have. So that'd be my advice.
Great point. Keep developing your strengths, but staff your weaknesses, as I've heard. So great point. As people are starting out, really know yourself. As Rishi said, he had some insecurities, and you got to deal with those and come to grips and be real about it. But I think that assessment is really a good point. Judy, it looks like you're ready to jump in.
I got it. I think that it's important to, again, know your worth and know what, and don't be afraid. I also have another story about, I was calling all these people and calling, but afraid to make the ask. So I think you have to really have that strength within you to say, you know what, this is great, but let's move it to the next phase. It's like Jacqueline said, it's like dating, you've dated long enough. Now let's go to, dinner. Okay. Let's do dinner instead of coffee. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, I think that you have to know how to make the ask. I almost said something else, but it is, know what you're worth, know what you want, and be really clear about it and ask for it. Don't be afraid to ask for it.
That's good. Know what you want, be clear, ask for it.
Well, you're insecure when you first start, I think. You're not sure of really how to navigate. And so once you become clear about that, it's very easy to do the ask. But I tell my younger self, get out there and do it.
Yeah, but and then getting back to your point, knowing your value.
Oh, for sure.
Who you are and what you have to offer.
For
and
sure.
Sticking by it. Great advice. Kevin and Kaylee.
Dad has to answer that one. I'm still young.
You're still so young. Kevin.
Just keep hustling. That's keep hustling, keep getting in front of people. That's always been my best gift, is the gift of gab. If I can actually sit down with you at a table and talk, I can generally develop a relationship that way, a one-on-one relationship with my customers.
I love that, Kevin. I love it. I think especially as small businesses, especially once you start gaining some success, you gain some past performance, and you've done some jobs. Sometimes you may want to slack off, or you're celebrating all your victories, and then you kind of slack off. But I love that. Keep hustling. And to that point, because I know, Judy, if you can add the story about you know where I'm going, where you called Columbus State.
Oh, that's the one. That's the one.
I think that speaks
that's
to
exactly
Kevin.
the one.
I think that speaks to Kevin's point about keep hustling.
2 years I called him. I knew everything about the man, a facility director. I knew everything about him. I knew he was getting his master's. I knew he had kids.
Well,
I knew all of these things.
Prior to that, you wanted to do business with, you wanted to start doing business with colleges and universities, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And I actually had a track record with the larger universities. So,
okay.
And
who remain nameless.
Who will remain nameless, except when I name them. And so, But yeah, no, so I just kept calling him. And finally I was like, okay, we're going to the next step. I said, I said, I know everything about you except what you look like. So let's meet. And I did. And he's like, well, I've got 15 minutes. I went in a blizzard and parked my car and I don't even know where, and met with him. And once you're in these circles, everyone knows everyone else. So I sat down, I knew I only had 15 minutes. An hour and a half later, I left with a contract. And I really wish that I had done that 2 years sooner. But I mean, and then you have to believe, well, everything happens when it's supposed to happen or whatever. But, like I said, I would have told my younger self just to ask for it. It can't hurt.
Just to ask.
Yeah.
But to
2
keep
years.
point,
How about that one?
Hustling. 2 years you called Columbus State and kept leaving voicemail messages, talking to the guy. 2 years, you knew his whole life story.
Everything.
But that persistence and staying hungry and keep going at it. One really good question I wanted to bring up before we're getting ready to close, especially in light of what's going on with COVID and the pandemic, how has subcontracting opened up, if this applies to you, or even Prime, but in light of, because I want to speak to getting in situations like this and learning how to be able to pivot and adjust and adapt. But maybe if you have subcontracting experiences, you can speak to that, or whatever falls into this category. How has subcontracting opened up new revenue streams and or created other business opportunities for your company? I know, Jackie, you have a specific story because we spoke. So maybe if you can lead off into this, how has subcontracting opened up new revenue streams and or created other business opportunities for your company? And then we'll let the others share.
I think you're referring to when I opened up in my introduction, I talked about a couple of business areas that we grew into. And that was really the clinical staffing. So we're an IT services company. And when I started in this field, my background was in system security. So I remember when HIPAA first hit the hospital scene, privacy controls and they started to lock down everything. Well, I used to go out to hospitals and do assessments of their technology, looking at their controls. And I knew everything you wanted to know about the software, the hardware, right? Had no clue on the mission. So here I am trying to talk about two-factor authentication and defense in depth with a doctor who says, look, I need to get to this x-ray. I don't have time to go through all these different things. How do I get to this x-ray? I mean, and I'm like, oh, so, it hit me, and I knew this from my career, but, when you're implementing anything, it's about the end user, right? It's about the functional user. Who is using what you're trying to build or deploy? And I said, well, man, this healthcare IT thing seems like it's going somewhere. This might be big one day. So I said, but I need to understand functional users who are clinicians. They're doctors, they're nurses, techs, or people who work in that capacity. So I partnered with a company who specialized in providing clinical personnel within military treatment facilities. And that's the important part. I'm in the defense space. That's what I knew. That's the lane I knew. I didn't go to our local hospital in the community because that's a completely different business model. So I stayed within the model I understood, which is the defense sector. I said, hey, I really want to learn from a functional user. So I subcontracted and started hiring clinical personnel within military treatment facilities, which are hospitals, military hospitals on bases. Well, lo and behold, as I started to do that, I got a better understanding of those applications and systems that they were using for my employees, which led me to be able to win my first healthcare IT contract.
Awesome.
That really, it was a combination of clinical personnel and IT. And if I tell you how many times, and I was giving my capability presentation in the beginning, my statement, and I had this healthcare and this IT on there, and people were like, what is this? You don't know what you want to do? What are you doing? This doesn't make sense. And I had to tell the story. Well, here's how I think they're connected. Well, now you don't have to do that. When you say healthcare IT, oh yeah, get it. Yeah, understand. So, but that was an opportunity where, building a relationship with a partner, starting off, it was one position, let's see how you do. Let's see if you understand. And I had to learn that business. So we had to expand where I had to learn about credentialing and all these things that are involved on that side of the business and grow in that area. So subcontracting was really helpful as we built our company.
Awesome. Now, I wasn't even referring to that. I was
Oh,
referring
there's
to
another one.
the story with the university.
Which one?
UD, the capstone.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's
okay.
like, again, we got so many, right? We've been doing this a while now. Really, I'm participating in the University of Dayton MBA capstone as a case study. So the MBA cohort, there's a group of students who are basically performing an analysis of our business. It's free. You know, it's something you sign up for. You present a challenge or issue that you would like for them to explore. The one that I was looking at is I wanted to understand how could our core capabilities, which are primarily in the government sector, how would those apply and transfer into the commercial sector? You know, if I want to do more work business to business or with some of the other local businesses in the area, which services really match up and what will we need to do to adjust the way we go about our business? And we're actually going to have our final report delivered next week. But so you just have to really try to think outside the box, right? You know, you have to be creative and think of ways that you can improve your business.
Awesome. Thank you, Jackie. Who wants to chime in next? I know we're running out of time. I think we're going to go over a few minutes, but if everybody's okay, I don't think anybody, we will wrap up and have everybody give kind of closing remarks. But if somebody wants to just kind of share a minute and speak to this question, and then we'll close out with remarks. Halima, you wanna? You're on mute.
Okay. So as it relates to subcontracting opportunities and pivoting and creating more opportunities, we were a subcontractor on a very large construction project earlier this year, anticipated our final delivery being in June, and that actual project was put on hold because of COVID. And so one of the things that we did, because we're already positioned to provide industrial supplies, we were able to start to provide PPE supplies to either those getting ready to go back into the construction world once we were starting to get the go ahead to do so. So we were a major supplier of the necessary PPE to help a lot of the construction workers get back on those jobs. So that's one of the areas where we were able to still keep some revenue stream coming in. And we had to get creative as well because a lot of our larger suppliers had no supply, not have anticipated dates upon when they would. So we worked with other local small businesses that were making handmade masks, or some that had the distilleries. We were able to find bottles and bottle and do some personalized sanitizer. And we did a whole series that had like some uplifting words for everyone that was going to be touching that bottle, you know, probably 20, 30 times a day. So that was one of the things that we did help maintain business as well as be supportive during that time as well. And that project did start up again, but it wasn't until like August, September. So, you know, we're still hoping to finish it up by the end of this year. But it's a pretty large project, and it's one that we've been working towards for a couple of years now because it was construction. And I'm just grateful that I had already positioned us in a place where we could try to pivot and be a supplier to help everyone that we could in what was going on with COVID.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Judy, do you want to chime in real quick and share anything?
Okay, I'm here. As far as multiple revenue streams, you know, we are in so many different markets that I'm going to say that one market leads us to another market, and all of our experiences have, every person that you meet can lead you to a different experience as long as you're performing and you're doing what you should be doing. And so we've been really fortunate to have cross-pollination with clients, which I'm sure everyone here has, where we work on one project. It could be in the commercial sector or the hospitality sector, or we're in every market really. And what happens is they say, hey, we have this other project, can you do this? And it's a different,
Wow.
it's a different market completely.
Wow.
So, but now, I mean, I'm very rarely surprised as to other, we're in every market now, but I've been doing this for 30 years. But yes, one thing leads to another. So it's been really exciting. But no, I mean, just get out there and give it your best, and think, you know, it'll lead to different streams for you, I think.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay.
Rishi.
Yeah, for us, this kind of goes back to, I think, what I said earlier about where your capabilities are and where to draw those lines and still being able to perform. Because we've been asked to do certain things, subcontractors, where we're like, okay, do we really know how to do this? And it's like, okay, we know this part, this part, this part, this part. Yeah, it all makes sense. And that's how we got involved in doing line jetting work. You know, prior to that, we had done all industrial work, we had done power washing, we had done this, we had done the waste collection, the treatment and disposal, and then there was this one segment that we just never got involved in. And you know, so we subcontracted for a little bit, and then we said, okay, what happens if we get the equipment ourselves and just try this? And you know, everything looked good on paper, and it made sense. And before you knew it, you know, you had a whole new business.
Awesome. Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you. Kevin, did you want to close us out on this, and then we'll give final remarks and we'll close out?
Well, for us, we've always maintained, I don't want to call it almost a different division. We started out as a painting contractor, and we do a lot of special coatings at water and wastewater treatment plants. And then we moved that into our general construction. And when we run projects, we still self-perform. That's a big deal to the government. They like that a lot when you can self-perform something. And we're the drywall finishers and the painters at the end, so we get to make the job look good. And so that's helped. And we still do the water and wastewater part of it. We try to not keep all our eggs in one basket, so to speak. We try to, same deal. We work for the government. We work for the state. We work for cities. We work out of state. We follow general contractors around. That's all I really got to add.
No, thank you. Wonderful. Yeah, having, you know, business in different little areas and different streams. So as you said, you don't have your eggs in one basket. As we close out, and I know we're just a few minutes over, but someone said this has been a phenomenal discussion. Thank you to all the presenters. Yes, and your closing remarks. And if people are looking to do business with the government, in addition to the SBDCs being able to provide access to capital, the MBACs are able to provide access to capital as well. Thank you, Sharon, for typing that in. As we close out, just your final remarks to those that are on, and I believe everybody's still logged into the webinar. What would be your final remarks to the participants today as they are looking to either get engaged, start getting engaged with the government as a subcontractor, even as a prime? What will be your final remarks to them to encourage them? And then those maybe that have been in business for some time, what advice would you give them as your final closing remarks? And we can start with, we'll start with Kevin. We'll go backwards. We'll start with Kevin since he's on the screen now. What will be you're on mute.
Yeah, okay. I hit it and it didn't go off for some reason. Don't give up. Don't ever give up. Keep hustling. That would be, and try to meet as many people as you can and continue.
All right, keep
You can do
hustling
it.
keep hustling, keep networking, and you can do it. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Rishi.
I think learning that sales system, utilizing all your resources, because there's so many resources out there, it's actually overwhelming. We spoke a lot about building processes, and in order to build those processes and build that strategy, which is going to be much different than just little tactics here, you've got to be highly organized.
Yeah.
So you need a really good way to become highly organized. And if you are not an organized person, then maybe hire someone who is, or
Yeah.
Invest in systems like CRMs and so
Mm-hmm.
forth, so that you can stay organized, you can stay mobile, you can stay very nimble. And I mean, even with this interaction right now, this is something that I did not do last year. I did not do 9 months ago.
Wow.
And now, everyone's kind of caught up to speed, and you learn that, okay, listen, I'm able to eliminate some drive time. I'm not behind the windshield as much. I'm efficient. Do I prefer being in front of people? Absolutely. But will I take this? Yeah, I will. And it's taken me a little bit to adjust to that.
Good. Great point. Thank you, Rishi. Halima.
I want to say thank you first, Shonda and SBA, for allowing me to be here today. I love sharing and being able to be open and candid and give people some of the things that I've learned along the way, best practices. But I want to say, make sure that as it relates to subcontracting, if you're wanting to be a subcontractor for someone, do your homework. Remember, that could be a marriage that could last 3 to 4 years, depending on the term of that contract.
Mm-hmm.
If you end up being the prime and you're wanting to bring people in as subs, again, do your homework. Know what they've done in the past, the work they've done, get some references and follow up on it, and try to learn from your mistakes.
Great. Great. Do your homework, learn from your mistakes. Thank you so much, Halima. Wonderful. Jackie, and then we'll do Judy.
It's hard to add any more to that, but I would just say, just don't be afraid to fail. I think one thing we found is it's going to happen. Okay, you're going to make mistakes. There will be failures. No matter how much you prepare, how much research, and you want to do those things because you want to be as prepared as you can. But even with all of that, you're going to make mistakes. So the hardest part is not beating yourself up or giving up. Learn from it and move forward. So thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity as well. I mean, anytime that we can share, our lessons learned and help someone else in the process, it's always a blessing. Thank you.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you. Don't be afraid to fail and keep going at it, as Kevin said. That's excellent, because that's a part of it. The failures is part of it, the mistakes. Thank you so much. And then Judy.
Okay. Again, thank you so much. I have to say, when I'm on these panels, it is so motivating to me, as well as I hope motivating to the people who are listening. I mean, we all have stories and experiences, and I want to go back to my main 3 points that I basically started with, which is be hungry, get out there and learn everything that you can learn, and ask for, connections and networking and work through all of those things. So be hungry, be humble, know when you need the help and ask for it. And if you make a mistake, own it and deal with it and move on. And then know your worth and know how to ask for what you want. So those are my 3 points, and I hope that it helps someone down the road.
Awesome. Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Halima. Thank you, Rishi. Thank you, Kevin. And thank you, Kaylee, so much for offering your wonderful, just sharing your journey, offering your words of wisdom and advice, sharing your successes as well as your failures, and just being real. Thank you so much. I think everybody's saying this was a wonderful session. Thank you so much. I'm going to put up their let me share their information on here so you can have it. And as we close out, just want to encourage you that we will be having the Ohio Business Matchmaker. It's on the screen virtually next Tuesday, November 17th and 18th. If you have not registered, please visit ohiobusinessmatchmaker.com to register. Visit the tabs at the top for registration. It's just $35. Be an excellent way for you to start to get engaged with government agencies, or if you're already doing business at the local or state level, to start getting involved in doing business with the federal government. To access this, the link to this webinar, it was recorded, or previous webinars, go to ohiobusinessmatchmaker.com. The very top of the page, click on the link for previously recorded webinars. And then we just have 2 more webinars closing us out for this series. Tomorrow, we will have a panel discussion at 10 a.m. I'll be facilitating It's Doing Business with Boeing. And then at 2 p.m., we were talking about teaming and joint venturing. There will actually be a session with a lawyer, teaming and joint venturing, the good, the bad, and the ugly at 2 p.m. So you can register for those at the ohiobusinessmatchmaker.com. Thank you so much for joining us today. I know we went over, but I think it was well worth it, the information that you gained. And again, thank you so much to the panelists, to all of our panelists for joining us and for sharing. I think these are one of the most rewarding sessions because I learn from you guys. Sometimes we give information and to assist small businesses in doing business with the government, but you guys actually walk it out and you actually have those relationships and those contracts. So thank you so much for sharing. We hope that you will be able to join us next Tuesday and Wednesday. It's going to be a wonderful experience. And again, thank you for your time today. Hopefully you can join us for a webinar tomorrow. And we look forward to seeing you next Tuesday and Wednesday for the Matchmaker event. Everybody have a great day and have a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much again. And all right, goodbye.
Yes, thank you, Shonda.
Thank you. Great job, everybody.